Welcome to the Grow Renaissance podcast. Let's nourish the world.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Grow Renaissance Fireside Chat. You've got me and Neil back on today with some exciting updates. And as always, the goal of these chats is just update you on the things that are going on, what we've been up to. And we've had an exciting week because we just got back from a week-long cruise and planning for a Hawaii event with the Connect crew in November in Hawaii. But let's dive in. Neil, you want to give us an update on the cruise in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's been really busy for anyone that has been speaking to me over the last few days. You know, prior to the cruise, I was actually in New York during Climate Week.
Oh my gosh. Let's start there. So before we get to the cruise, Neil went to Climate Week. This is how busy it's been. You forget all of these massive things that have happened. So let's start there. Neil, tell us all about Climate Week.
Amazing. Yeah, so Climate Week, it kind of blew my socks off. I landed on Saturday. I was every day, 7 a.m., 10 p.m., engaged in meetings and conversations and speaking engagements throughout Manhattan. So from one house to another. So for those of you who don't understand Climate Week, they hold all these different houses, all to have different topics and different themes. It was a very busy week, but it was amazing. So I was actually speaking at a Deloitte event all around bioeconomy. And one of the really cool things about that is when Grow got mentioned, the whole room changed their tune. And we spent about an hour and a half speaking about our platform, how it can plug into just about everything happening in the bioeconomy world, whether it was tokenization, whether it was immutable data on chain. It could help streamline some of the grant systems coming out. And that was just a powerful and wonderful session. So in that room were heads of CPGs, they're leads of different tech companies, they're governors of state. It was a really impactful. And the resounding feedback I got was, how come we haven't heard about this before? And not that blockchain is new, but the way Grow is bringing this tool into the spotlight, I think is catching a lot of people's attention. So that was great. We were a sponsor for a big event called Why Regenerate, put on by Jackson and Cortland. And you know Jackson well. So, they're just spitfires in terms of bringing just badasses into the room, into the regenerative space. And so I was in a room full of, pioneers in the regenerative agriculture world. And again, we had independent food production, we had farmers, we had individuals in the extractive services for regenerative agriculture. And then we had myself representing Grow. And so Grow had sponsorship, spotlight. We were talked about a lot. And one of the amazing things there is we have some really great integrations coming out of that. So groups that have platforms or services that want to plug in with Grow didn't really understand the power that we have and built into our system. And really that backbone of how do we create more data sovereignty right at the farm gate level, and how do we continue to circulate back opportunities to the land stewards, farmers or ranchers or producers, and how can they leverage their skill sets with what we've already built and the railway we've already built. And that really was encouraging. I also met with some amazing sustainability people uptown. We got really engaged about what sustainability really means. And again, that often leads into environmental credits. So a lot of you may have heard around us talk about carbon credits or biodiversity credits. It's a bit of a broken or fractured market space just as a whole. And if you start doing some exploration in there, there's a lot of confusion in the terminology. And I was given the opportunity to get on a soapbox and talk about the new sandbox we built at Grow and how we are actually going to create a more streamlined, less bureaucratic system that really is facilitating the wonderful components of what environmental credits really were aimed to accomplish, which is improving the ecological outcomes, bringing carbon into the ground, and rewarding those that are making the efforts, and then downstream, supporting the supply chain with the data for the reporting so they can continue to fund some of these projects. Well, we've accomplished that, and we've actually created a system, as you know, Will, of trust and transparency. And it's something that people haven't really connected the dots on, and all of a sudden the light bulbs were just going off. And so I'm actually sitting here playing around with a litany of cards. I've got about 4 stacks of these of people that want to engage, want to follow up. I think when we were on the cruise, Will, you got some phone calls from people that I talked to saying, "Hey, we want to connect with you. We want to reach out." So it was a wonderful event, and really, I think Grow and through the support of everyone running our nodes and the infrastructure is really starting to catch the attention of everyone we want to know about us. So
I think one thing that's interesting to me is one, I think for everybody listening, if you're not aware of what New York Climate Week is, it's kind of the who's who of the space. It's one of the biggest events of the year. Everyone is there. And so that's one side. So understanding who's there, that this is the event. What would you say as people came in and they started to understand blockchain and grow and what we could do in the future, when it did start to open up, what were the opportunities or some of the aha moments that you saw people have about what we're doing?
Yeah, really, really good question. I think the biggest one that hit me was holding each other accountable. So this ability, and this was a comment that I resoundingly heard across the city as I was talking to people about Grow, was this really is an ability for us to hold each other accountable. So CPG and farmers, regulatory parties and land stewards, ecological and sustainability groups. And so everyone is going to be held accountable to the same standards, and it's all revolving around that immutable blockchain layer that really is tamper proof and creates different dialogues. And people they're craving that. There's too much data manipulation, data going missing, data being used in the wrong way, and no one is really trusting any of the sources. And enter Grow, and we start to create that accountability factor. On the other side of that, the democratization and getting more quality, nutritious food into the hands of consumers, bringing consumers closer and more edified about how their food is grown or raised and then even processed, is another wonderful story that we can tell through the Grow blockchain. And that was also another light bulb moment that was happening.
That's cool. Very cool. I love it. Big week. Thanks, Neil, for representing Grow there. It's led to a lot of conversations. Like you're mentioning, you and I have almost a full calendar this week and next, just talking to people that come from that and starting to open their eyes into what are we doing, how are we doing it. And I think that leads to kind of, you went there, we met straight in Florida, got on a cruise. And on the cruise, we met with a lot of our community members, some of our top sellers, particularly of nodes and blockchain products, both for Grow and some of the other projects that leverage our technology in Connect, and had a really, really good week there. Maybe I could take that a little bit, Neil, and we'll dive into what that cruise was like. So we went on this cruise. This was the top 100 qualifying people. So that means in the ecosystem that Grow is a part of, they've sold the most product. They've gotten the blockchain in the most people's hands. And we got the opportunity to spend a lot of time with them and to present one of our new updates, which is really moving into the NFT side of what we're doing on the blockchain. And so when I look at the blockchain and the steps of creating what we are building, the first step is really have the technology, launch the tech. Then step 2 becomes decentralize it. Get nodes and miners in the hands of as many people as possible, which we've done over the last 2 years. We have almost 26,000 nodes running all over the world. We have people that visit our websites, last time I checked, in over 149 countries in a 30-day period. So we've done that piece. Well, now we have to start doing the products and services that we built this on. What was the vision? Nourish the world, decentralize the global ag economy. How do we do that? And we were able to pitch that, talk about that. And so I think it'd be cool for us to talk a little bit about what we talked about, where it was, and kind of give a little bit of that presentation. So what we were able to do is we talked to everyone, we brought them together, and we launched what we now call Livestock. So some of you have heard our animal NFTs or the Cappy Cattle program, but we've really built that into what we're now calling Livestock. And Neil, you've been instrumental in building that, the back end, connecting the farmers. We talk a little bit about Livestock, and then I'll dive a little bit into the NFT side of things.
Absolutely. So one of the big things that is happening right now is, like a lot of areas of agriculture, the livestock in particular, our cattle, side of the market space is under a lot of scrutiny from big pack houses, so centralized entities that are actually processing meat, how we're actually moving cattle around. And so there's all kinds of cattle. There's mama cattle that birth, steers that turn into meat. There's different breeds of cattle that, produce different quality meat. So Wagyu is a breed or a process of a certain breed to create really quality meat that tastes a bit different than Angus breeds. One of the bigger issues is that a lot of these cattlemen and ranchers are unable to sell into the current market spaces. Pricing is going through the roof. They face the same financial constraints, just in a slightly different way than cropping or produce or CEA agriculture producers. And so we created a process and a platform where we could actually put those cows in a digital version on Livestock, our platform. And you or anyone in the world could actually own the digital version of that cow. And what that means is that we're actually starting to create funding mechanisms for these ranchers so they can get infrastructure and genetics and start turning on epigenetics. So we've got different attributes for these cows. And then we can actually get that meat into the hands of those that want it. And so it could be an NFT holder. You could be purchasing this for a friend or a family member, or gifting it to a less impoverished area where they actually are needing some quality protein. All of those options are possible. And we've just built the railway and the platform to make that very, very accessible and at a price point that isn't going to break the bank for anyone. The rancher, the NFT buyer, and those that are actually wanting to eat the meat. This is a mechanism that I think is actually going to change fundamentally how we're actually accessing quality meat, and ensuring that we continue to build our herd stock. So Australia, Canada, US, our herd stocks in Europe as well are diminishing. They're diminishing greatly. And so what's happening is that we're overfeeding our cattle and they're bloating, and there's a lot of fat there that we don't need in our cattle. And so if we can replenish and start building out herds, and we get everyone that's using livestock to help support the ranchers, we're actually going to build more cattle availability. Cattle is absolutely wonderful for our ecosystem. You've heard me talk about it so many times, Will. In America, in North America, we used to have the black wave, the bison that went from one end of the North America to the other, cheek to jowl. They competed over grasses. And because that isn't there, we're starting to degrade our soils, and there's a lot of environmental impact. Well, we can start to create or mimic that same natural process with cattle. And so it's really, really positive, and I'm really excited to bring it to the market space.
That's awesome. Thank you, Neil. It's been a lot of work getting to this point. And I think one of the things to understand as our community is we are pioneers. We are at the forefront of all of this and all of those things that Neil just talked about that are going to change the game, that bridge that best technology we have today of blockchain and AI into the best of the past. Like you talk about that black wave coming through, right? How do we go back to that? How do we get some of the good that brought? Well, we do it by connecting people to the blockchain. That's what we believe. That's what we're doing. And so to do that, you have to have these NFTs that exist. And very simply, all that means is we're having a digital representation that is on an immutable open source blockchain that is tied directly to a real world asset. So whenever we talk about tokenizing assets, building these new marketplaces like Livestock, how do we do that? Well, first, we have to have digital representation that exists. And so if you've been following with Grow, about 6 months ago, we launched the animal NFT, came out, and we had people purchase those, put those in their wallet. Well, what that led to is now our ability to launch this program, connect it with farmers, because we were able to go in and say, hey, we have this blockchain, this digital representation. We now have the mechanism that can be used to go crowdfund your cows, to connect you to a community of people that care about what you're doing. Well, what's cool now is now that we've done it with cows, we can do it with pigs, chickens, horses, apples, cherries, potatoes, basically everything that we grow and raise, we can connect that. And so as a community, one of the exciting updates that is now coming is if you are running a Grow node, you will start seeing the distribution of all of those NFT products. The digital NFTs that represent those products, those containers, they will be dropped to the nodes. And then that will create the marketplace that creates our ability to go in and track everything that we want to. One of the things that was cool for me on the cruise is we had a lot of people come out and say, "Oh, I can't wait till I can scan my food and I can do this and I can do this and see where it's coming from." That's a big lift. I think I just like to track all of the food that's being grown and raised and shipped all over the world. It's a really big lift. But the step in doing that, very similar to how you have to launch nodes to build the blockchain, we have to have the digital representations of that in our NFTs in as many hands as possible. And so as a community, if we could build that and we could start getting cows, getting chickens, getting apples in our friends' hands in their digital grow wallet, what that's going to do is open up the door for us to start actually tying those to real world assets and go to farmers and connect it all. So it's exciting. A lot of really, really cool things going on and building up to the end of the year, where I think if we look at just kind of what's happening in the general macro crypto markets, we see Bitcoin hit a new all-time high last week, or this week actually. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot of exciting things happen.
Well, and I tell you what, the Web3 community right now and governments around the world and different associations, they're catching on to RWA and tokenizing. And what we've done is we've used this tool. And for those of you that may not understand the term, and Will, maybe I'll let you fill in some of the blanks here too, but NFT just stands for non-fungible token. There are Grow token. One Grow token looks like another Grow token. They're interchangeable. An NFT is not. It's got, we call it container, but as a good Canadian, sometimes I call it a hockey card. You can call it a baseball card if you wanted to. One is different from another because it represents a specific player and it has their own attributes. Their batting scores or their goals on net, ice time, et cetera, and so forth. That's all we're talking about when we start talking about digitizing or tokenizing real world assets, specifically cows and the produce and the trees, et cetera, and so forth. We're creating this card that's going to have attributes, and that's going to hold a digital value. And so and maybe you could explain this a little bit, Will, when we talk about the nodes distributing these NFT containers, or think about it, our Grow sports card, it's still, you're going to have three options. You can hold it there and do nothing. And it's not going to gain any value. It's just going to be available. You can actually connect a soul to it, or you can connect a living product to it, a real world asset, call that tomatoes or apples or honey or pigs, whatever that case may be. And or we might actually come and say, hey, we've got some people that want it, and we're going to be able to purchase that out of your bank, and you're going to get rewarded for that. So you're holding it for the community. You play an important role in this by having your node distribute that and hold it, but then you have some options, and I think that's really exciting. So maybe you could flesh that out just a little bit.
I can, and there's a couple important things to note there. So what we're doing is, because we need all of these digital containers to tie into these real world assets, they have to exist. And because we're a decentralized blockchain, we have to create the supply or the inventory of those NFTs. And so that's what we're doing by distributing them through the nodes. And once it's there, then you have the option to either activate it, which would be tying it to a real world asset, or because you are the supply, we as node owners are the supply. If a company comes in and says, I need 1 million Apple NFTs because I have 1 million apples to take them from, well, there's only two options for them to get that. They either have to mine it themselves by buying nodes and running them, or they have to buy it from the blockchain. Well, the blockchain is all of the node owners. And so one point I want to make is the value of that actually can change. And so if the supply goes up, the price or the value of that NFT could go up or down, very similar to how the market of the token goes. But there's the NFT and then the token. So to just make that really simple again, what we are as node owners and as a community is the supply of those NFTs. And then as the demand continues to rise, as more and more people want traceability on their food, and we see that happening all over the world. I think we're still very early on that, but this will be the mechanism to do it. Then as the demand increases, so could the price of those NFTs. And so that actually can change, which adds to the value of us being a part of the blockchain.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, thanks for that correction there. I think that's very well said.
Yep.
It's exciting. It's really exciting.
It is exciting. It is exciting. So those are a few updates. A lot of things happening this week. We wanted to get one out, give an update. What we will also be doing, just to kind of go forward through the month of October, is we are launching a new platform. We have kind of our alpha test out. We've put about 200 people into the platform. It's where we're educating everyone about this. So you've had the podcast, you have our social media platforms. But what we're working on now is specific modules, kind of like a classroom. The Grow School is what we're calling it. And it's going to be education about all of this. So as we build up, be on the lookout for that, because we want everyone in our community to be in there, to be engaging in there, and to be learning about what we're doing. And then get the podcast and get as many wallets as we can set up. We're still in the growth phase. We're getting more and more node owners on a monthly basis. But what we need right now is continued people holding a Grow wallet, the Grow token, or a Grow NFT as those start to drop.
Yeah, and don't forget, you get to earn your badges with that, and every badge that you earn in a cultivator NFT that drops our badges, is going to gain you action points. And if you're curious about that, come and ask us. And then, Will, the other thing I wanted to mention, and this is for every single community member, whether you're running a node or whether you're holding an NFT, if you're in any of our social platforms, Discord, for those of you in the Connect platform or in the school platform, and you see somebody that's asked a question, I highly encourage you to go in there. If you know the answer, if you feel like you've got some feedback, get engaged with other community members and share your thoughts, share some of your experience, or simply help them out by answering the question. You know us as a Grow team, we're trying to do a lot, and we can't always be as responsive as we would like to be. And we're starting to put the mechanisms there, but really this works because you're engaged as well. We're just community members like you who just are actioning different priorities in our day-to-day lists. But I really, really want to encourage everyone to jump on those platforms and start helping each other out, answering the questions, sharing your feedback and thoughts. And if you do want to reach us, you've got all of our information all over the place. But in those chat messages, make sure you use an @ whoever you want to message, and we'll try to respond to it. Just know that we don't always get to it immediately.
That's it. And it's not because we don't want to. We are just going and jamming. And sometimes Neil and I don't even talk until the end of the day or 2 days later because we just keep going. So thank you, everyone, for listening to this. Please share it with all of the community members that you know. Give them an update on what's happening. And we will continue to get these out to everyone. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Grow Renaissance podcast. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe this episode. Remember, it will take a community of us to do the best in the world and truly nourish not only ourselves, but the planet, the atmosphere, the soil, the plants, and the animals on it. So make sure you spread this message anywhere that you can.